All this work is flawless.
Was geht ab, Brudi? Willkommen auf meinem YouTube-Kanal. Ich bin Lil Scotty Smack Shay Scott McDonald. We back at it again with another review reaction. This time, and this is the first time I've ever done this, is doing a reaction to Geography Now. So shout out to Germany. I fucking love you guys. I can't wait to visit one day. I'm from Canada. I'm from Fredericton, New Brunswick. My name's Scott McDonald. Shout out to Coffee. Shout out my homie Patrick. But you also should make a reaction to Geography Now, Austria. Of course, Patrick. You always would say that. I knew. Anyways, I love all you guys so much, man. If you guys are new to my channel, click subscribe right now. I got a crazy, amazing thing going. I got an incredible story, just a life story about myself of overcoming. Like, I'm an overcomer. If you understand or you know what that means, I've been through a lot of trauma, trials, and tribulations in my life, and I've continued to always get up and always stand tall. And no matter what, or no matter how many times I've been kicked down or hurt and beat, I just keep getting up and I keep fucking going for my, following my dreams is what I'm trying to say. So, let's just get into this, man. I want you guys to all know how grateful I am to be here, to be alive, and like I attempted suicide 4 months ago, and since then, oh, my life has been such a movie. Here we go, screwing things up. But my life has been such a movie in a way where I've had so many things, like amazing things happen to me. If you guys believe in the universe, man, it's all about being positive, number one, and just trying your best every day. As long as you can do that, you'll be all right. Trust me. Like, just be good, be nice, be positive. Just try to go out of your way to just not really so much even go out of your way. Just do the right thing. And don't be fucking mean to people. Don't be saying bad shit, and you'll be fine. So, let's get into this.
All right. Lederhosen, Schnitzel, beer, bratwurst, order, bread and beer, complicated history beer, no humor, EDM, and gummy bears that will kind of like give you diarrhea, but it's like worth it.
Bro, I love gummy bears.
Stereotypes that every German is so sick and tired of hearing.
I love gummy bears too, man. Honestly, I probably eat too many fucking gummy bears.
So jump through Denmark's lagoon, dance through France's forest, and now we've made it to.
Shout out to this dude, Kingpin Germany.
Level 1, begin. You know why I'm smiling. Yep, Germany has a lot of territorial anomalies. We'll get into that in a little bit, but first, Germany is located in Central Western Europe, bordered by 9 other countries. Don't forget little.
See, that's incredible. And one thing I've learned is that a bunch of, like, you guys know so many different languages, and this is part of the reason why I was
a small coast on the North and Baltic Seas, which they own about 50 small islands. Now, Germany, like the US, is a federal republic which has 16 smaller states, or Bundesländer, each with its own constitution, 3 of which are cities, the capital Berlin, Hamburg, and Bremen, which is actually kind of like 2 cities, including Bremerhaven on the coast, but they kind of act like one entity. Fun side note, Lower Saxony is actually geographically situated further north than regular Saxony. Now let's jump into the fun stuff. Now we
see. I guess,
already
bro.
discussed the Jungholz Quadrupoint and the Vennbahn Railway entries with
This is
Belgium
interesting.
And Austria. However, there's a few more. The entire town of Bussingen am Hochrhein is surrounded.
That's very interesting. That an entire town is surrounded. Do you know what I mean?
By Switzerland, whereas part of the Constance is cut off by the Rhine River and surrounded by Switzerland. However, immediately across the river, a small patch of empty land on the German side actually belongs to Switzerland. Finally, they split the island of Usedom with Poland in the north. Germany is interesting because every state in the country has its own distinct culture, dialect, history, food, traditions. I mean, Bavarians will be quite drastically different from Schleswig-Holsteiners. Mecklenburg-Vorpommern will be different from Saarland. This all has to do with ancient and recent history.
Dude, that's so cool, bro.
Basically, in the quickest way I can summarize this, Germanic tribes, Roman wars, Charlemagne, 3 kingdoms, this guy marries an Italian, creating a whole new mess called the Holy Roman Empire made up of 300.
The Holy Roman Empire made up of 300 smaller separate kingdoms. Wow. 300 smaller separate kingdoms.
100 smaller separate kingdoms, states, and dukedoms, which had nothing to do with Romans. Teutonic Knights, Brandenburgs became Prussia, Habsburgs became Austrians, Lithuanians and Poles made their own thing, whereas the Hungarians...
I wonder how long it took this guy to... Like, right here, is he reading? He must be reading off something.
Join the Austrians. Wars, battles. Napoleon comes over and messes everything up. And finally, German nationalism surges.
Napoleon comes over and
battles.
messes everything up.
Up and finally, German nationalism surges, and in 1871, Otto von Bismarck creates the first proto-German unified state. And then they're all like, oh dang, we came late to this game. We gotta scramble for some colonies. And that's how all of these countries at one point spoke German. Oh, and also keep in mind, like 300 years before this, a German banking company obtained colonial rights to Venezuela for like 20 years.
Yeah, see, that's fucking crazy too.
The city of El Dorado. So technically, you can kind of say Germans colonized the Americas, but it wasn't like a nationalized conquest thing. Fast forward even more, and then you get World War I, the monarchy ends, Treaty of Versailles, they lose land, Nazis come in, World War II, Germany splits in two for about...
That's the big old wall, eh?
40 years, and then finally, we get the Germany we have today.
That's Berlin.
World War II, Germany splits in two for about 40 years, and then finally, we get the Germany...
For the people that don't know, I react to German rap music, and that's how I became so interested in Germany. And
Germany we have today. East Germany, consisting of these states, is today still quite different from the rest of Germany, as it was first occupied and influenced by the Soviet Union. They are generally not as well off economically as the rest of the country, as you can still see the blocky Soviet-style buildings.
See, that is fucking crazy. The Soviet style.
Really not as well off economically as the rest of the country, as you can still see the blocky Soviet-style buildings sprawled throughout the regions. In fact, the city of Berlin was split in half, and the west side was actually an enclave of West Germany, only accessible by train and highway. You can even see from the satellite...
insane.
It's actually an enclave.
So there what? There's like... I mean, there would be cars in there, but...
Of West Germany, only accessible by train and highway. You can even see from a satellite image the divide. East Berlin still uses the yellowish tinted sulfur vapor light bulbs, whereas the West...
That's super interesting, too. You can see it from space!
And mercury arc white tinted light bulbs. Now the funny thing is, although Berlin is the largest city in Germany, the busiest airports are actually Frankfurt, Munich, Dusseldorf, with Berlin Tegel ranking at number 4. Otherwise, some top notable landmarks and spots would be the Brandenburg Gate, the Valhalla, Cologne Cathedral, the Ulminster Church, the tallest in the world, the Berlin Victory Column, and hundreds of castles all over. The most notable one probably being Neuschwanstein, the concept behind Disney's Cinderella Castle. Germany also has over 400, probably being Neuschwanstein.
Neuschwanstein?
The concept behind Disney's Cinderella Castle. Germany also has over 400 zoos.
Willkommen.
More than any other time. The concept behind Disney's Cinderella Castle. Germany also has...
Willkommen, Berlin,
over 400 zoos, more than any other country in the world. And of course, everybody knows about the Autobahn, the highway system, in which if you see this sign, it means there's no fucking speed limit. It's like that for a huge portion of the road. And no wonder, considering how vast and wide those countrysides can get. Time for level 2.
Level 2? Let's go.
Okay, think of it this way. In Germany, the more down you go, the more up you move. Basically, Germany lies on the Atlantic shelf in the north that starts with the mudflats in the North Sea. Seriously, this island right here is accessible only for a few hours by foot until the tide comes and floods everything. Then everything just kind of creeps up.
Right, see, that's where the same thing where I'm from. I'm from New Brunswick. We have the highest tide in the world, bro. Where I'm from.
Into the Alps in the south by Bavaria and Baden-Württemberg, with the highest mountain, Zugspitze, located right along the border with Austria. Kind of like France, Germany is filled with a vast irrigating network of rivers like the Spree, Elbe, Weser, Rhine, and of course, the mighty Danube that starts here. About a third of the land is arable, and another third is woodland, and after a millennia of civilization, Germans have cultivated the crap out of their country. Most agriculture, of course, happens in the North Flat Plains and the central regions of the country, which is, by the way, kind of like Europe's Tornado Alley. Due to its position sandwiched between the Arctic blasts of Scandinavia and the moist, warm jet streams of the Mediterranean below, Germany can be an atmospheric war zone in the summer. There are more tornadoes on average in Germany than any other country in Europe. Speaking of flat farmland, Germany is the world's largest rye and hop producer. Germans
lovely fucking love their bread.
Absolutely love their bread. There are over 300 different kinds of bread.
300 different kinds of bread to go with 300 different, what was it? Kingdoms?
Bread in the country, more types than any other country in the world, and almost every...
Each kingdom had their own type of bread. I don't know if that's true or not.
Every meal incorporates some kind of slice or small bun or Brötchen of bread. Hast du gluten-free? Nein!
Bist du gluten-free?
of slice or small bun or Brötchen of bread. Hast du gluten-free?
Fast.
Germans are heavy meat eaters, specifically in pork. They basically know every possible way to cook a pig. Over 50 different types of sausage exist alongside schnitzels, rouladen,
Schnitzel. Rouladen.
sauerbraten, Schweinsachse,
Schweinsachse.
and at a big party you might find Spanferkel. Beer
Spanferkel.
reigns supreme all over as the third largest consumers of beer after the Czech Republic. Even their president has no problem with public intoxication.
See,
and
that's
Austria.
hilarious.
Germany is world
Shout out Austria. Patrick.
renowned for their beer, which, by the way, follows the Reinheitsgebot rule,
Reinheitsgebot.
in which they are only allowed to use water, hops, malt, and sometimes yeast. Nonetheless, about 1,300 breweries exist, pumping out over 5,000 brands. The oldest continuously existing brewery in the world, started by Benedictine monks in 1040 AD, can be found here. Germany takes the environment very seriously, and for the past 2 decades has been going on a major green
Geniuses over there, I tell you, man. You guys are so smart.
revolution. As of today, they have the largest installed solar power capacity, and green infrastructure practices like home-installed turbines and solar panels have seen a huge surge in the past 10 years. Forests dominate the southern regions where the landscape gets hillier and mountainous. The most famous one being the Black Forest or the Schwarzwald.
The Black Forest, bro.
It's hillier and mountainous. The most famous one
I wonder if that's where they,
being the Black Forest or the Schwarzwald in
Schwarzwald.
Baden-Württemberg. Deer, bears, boar, foxes, badgers, and the national animal, the eagle, can be found thriving in these parts.
The national animal is the eagle. Huh. Isn't that the same as the United States?
Nonetheless, economically, Germany is known mostly for their exceptional engineering and industry production. Companies we've all heard of like Volkswagen, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Porsche, Audi, Telekom, Nivea, DHL, Bosch, Adidas, Puma, Adidas, Puma.
Adidas.
Yeah, it's kind of like the whole Biscoito Bolacha thing from Brazil. Remember? Well, we have mudflats, tornadoes, pork, beer, mountains. All that's missing is people. Level 3. Fun little side
Adidas.
note, in Germany, this is 3, not this. Now, if the EU was a family... Fun little side note, in Germany, this is 3, not this.
Huh.
Now, if the EU was a family, Germany would kind of be like the dad who got out of rehab, reconciled with his wife and kids, and is taking his new life very seriously as he is haunted by the demons of his past every day. First of all...
Well, now. One way to describe a country.
The country has about 82 million people and is the most populated in the EU, second most in Europe after Russia, and has the 4th largest nominal GDP in the world. About 80% of the country identifies as ethnically German, 12% other Europeans, mostly Polish, Italian, Dutch, and so on. Turks make up about 3.5%, Asians at 2%, and the rest are made up of Italian, Dutch, and so on. Turks make up about 3.5%,
UFO 361, shout out.
Asians at 2%, and the rest are made up of other groups like Africans and Americans. Also, they use the euro, they use the C and F type outlets, and they drive them.
See, that's cool, right? We don't, let's see if I got one. Well, I don't want to unplug anything.
Right side of the road. Germany is without a doubt a global powerhouse. It is the strongest economy in the EU and makes up about 16% of the Union's population. It's the 3rd largest exporter and importer of goods in the world. After the United States, Germany is also the 2nd most popular global migration destination. Germany experiences a high standard of living, tuition-free universities, if you get accepted, that is.
See, that's crazy. That is insane.
A mostly government-subsidized universal healthcare system, about a quarter is still privatized, and state pension for retirement at age 65. Now, when it comes to language, things get a little tricky. Each state kind of has their own type of German. However, to get by, most Germans learn how to speak Hochdeutsch, or High German, which is the standard dialect. The European Charter, however, protects the minority languages of Frisian, Danish, Romani, Sorbian, which is like a Slavic-based language used along the Czech-Polish border, and Plattdeutsch, or Low German, which has similarities to Dutch and is typically used by the Amish and Mennonite communities across the world.
So much, like, so many languages, man. It's what is insane to me, and how, well, like, I've listened to Germans talk back and forth, man, and literally, I don't understand any of it.
In terms of regional distinctions, though, Germany is kind of divided into 5 cultural areas: Rhineland, East and Middle Deutschland, Norddeutschland, Baden-Württemberg, and Bavaria. Rhineland is on the west side and has a culture somewhat more influenced by...
Look at that fucking... See, we don't have any of that where I'm from. The only castle that I've seen is the fucking hotel out west.
France, more Catholics, Carnival celebrations are huge out here. East and Middle Germany was the part that used to be its own country for 40 years as it was influenced by the Soviets. Sorbians can also be found.
And look what you guys were wearing, bro. See, that's just completely different than what we have over here.
Around here too. Northern Germany has a coastal sea culture that identifies closer with Denmark and the Netherlands. They are also known for being kind of quiet and reserved.
See, that looks more like where I'm from.
Baden-Württemberg has an interesting
Look at this, man. Look at what they're wearing, bro.
Swabian culture where they speak a dialect so thick that only about 40% of it is intelligible to other Germans. And then you have Bavaria, which is where
the America perpetuated stereotypes. See, a little boy, this is what you think of Germany. He's right.
Americanized
I'm Canadian.
perpetuated stereotypes about Germany came from with Lederhosen, Dirndls, half timber beer houses, and cuckoo clocks. For the record, Germans are sick of those stereotypes. It's like saying all Americans are cowboys with guns and horses. Speaking of stereotypes, some of the stereotypes in Germany include things like Saxons being very indecisive, Berliners are always bragging about themselves, Swabians are stingy, Bavarians drink too much, Hessians talk too much, Holsteiners don't talk enough, and...
How much of that is true? Anybody that's in Germany, tell me which ones are true there and which ones are 100% false.
Berliners are always bragging.
Berliners brag too much.
About themselves, Swabians are stingy, Bavarians drink too much, Hessians talk too much, Holsteiners don't talk enough, and so on. Words differ from regions too. For example, in High German, you would say Auf Wiedersehen, but in Bavarian, you would say Fiat die Gott. In 𝐂𝐎𝐍𝐓, you would
Fiat die Gott.
In High German, you would say Auf Wiedersehen, but
Auf Wiedersehen.
And so on. Words differ from regions too. For example, in High German, you would say Auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen.
So words differ from regions too. For example, in High German, you would say Auf Wiedersehen, but in Bavarian, you would say Fiat die Gott. In 𝐂𝐎𝐍𝐓, you would say Tschüss, and in Rhineland, you might say Adios. And there's so many compound words that get really long and complicated, like Rindfleisch, Etikettierungs-, Überwachungsaufgaben, Übertragungsgesetz. This is because many words are or Überwachungsaufgaben, Übertragungsgesetz.
Übertragungsgesetz.
This is because many words are merkwürdig, or ambiguous words, that are kind of elongated to give off an extensive meaning. Germans have very vivid imaginations and make up words for everything. Like my favorite word, backpfeifenges.
A face in need of slapping. Backfeet.
Not this time. By the way, for the record, this letter makes a double S sound. However, spelling reformers have tried to decrease the usage of this letter in recent years, which has led to some protests. Germans also love dubbing everything from foreign media into German. Some like this, some don't, but either way, it's here to stay. About 60% of the country identifies, at least nominally, as Christians, split between Protestants and Catholics. Germany was even the birthplace of the Protestant Reformation, split from the Catholic Church by Martin Luther.
Yeah, see, I don't care about any of that stuff.
Or irreligious, with a noticeable community of Muslims, mostly from the huge Turkish and Middle Eastern communities, at about 5%, as well as a few Jews, Buddhists, and Hindus rounding up the remainder 1%. To kind of get a feel of what it's like to be German, you kind of have to understand where they've come from. After World War II, they kind of had a lot of work to do. However, it wasn't until the mid-50s and early 60s that the Wirtschaftswunder, or economic wonder, happened, to which almost everybody got to work. Basically, this guy envisioned and implemented a social market economy combined with free market capitalism alongside socialist policies that established fair competition in a welfare state.
Now, listen to this. This is interesting. Everybody got to work. Basically, this guy...
this guy envisioned and implemented a social market economy combined with free market capitalism alongside socialist policies that established fair competition in a welfare state. GDP increased by 80%, investments by 120%, labor forces were utilized to the maximum. Things started to get better. In Germany, all children are corralled into general public schools until age 10.
See, this is super cool too, man. Like, this is nothing like what we have.
And they are given the option to enroll in 3 different types of middle schools. Gymnasium, geared towards focusing on higher linguistic, mathematic, and science fields for universities. Realschule, a middle ground type of school. And Hauptschule, a school that is geared towards helping kids that seem to show promise in specific vocation or trades. Germany also has the largest music market in the EU and the 3rd in the world after the US and Japan. They love preserving their heritage and culture through
shout out the music market.
Music and art. In fact, there are around around 130 national orchestras, mostly supported by public money, and artists get a 50% reduction in health insurance through a special type of offer in the legal system. One thing that still kind of supposedly maintains itself in Germany is the mindset of Vergangenheitsbewältigung. Totally butchered that, which kind of translates to a lingering sense of guilt from the past. Germans have reportedly some of the lowest levels of national pride, and unless if you're at a soccer game, chances are you will almost never see anyone holding a German flag or waving it in any kind of like patriotic setting. It's weird, but it's kind of how things are.
Oh, really? Because of everything that's gone on?
Patriotic setting. It's weird, but it's kind of how things are.
You monster!
They've made great strides to move on from the past. Nazi flags and Mein Kampf are incredibly illegal items to own in Germany, and they even have a rule, the Volksverhetzung, which basically says you cannot talk trash by denying the past atrocities. Some
You cannot talk past.
people say this infringes on free speech, others say it's good because it solidifies truth. Otherwise, some notable Germans throughout history include Charlemagne, although he was a Frank, but I guess it...
Hush! Excuse me. Hush! Excuse me. Woo!
kind of counts. Albrecht, Dürer, David Friedrich, Gutenberg, Bach, Beethoven, Carl Benz, Albert Einstein, although Americans would like to claim that he...
So they're saying that Albert Einstein
to the U.S. and became an American. Johannes Kepler, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, Friedrich Schiller,
I don't know
Michael
all these people.
Shoemaker.
Michael Shoemaker, I know who he is.
Johannes Kepler, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, Friedrich Schiller, Michael Shoemaker, Alex von Humboldt, and of course Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels co-founded Marxism. But one thing Germans do best would have to be diplomacy. To this day, the German passport holds the most visa-free nations out of any other country in the world, just beating Sweden. Therefore, you can kind of conclude that Germany kind of knows how to relate to people. Let's find out how in the final round, level 4.
Friend zone.
Germany knows how to make friends. They have over 220 diplomatic missions abroad and over 350 honorary consuls and have an incredibly high position of authority in the EU. Their closest African friend would probably be Namibia. As a former German colony way back in the 19th century, Namibia held on relations, and to this day, German is still a recognized language in Namibia. Germans have been supporting and sharing ties both economically and ideologically for over a century. India and South Korea are really close friends in Asia.
South Korea. Now that's very interesting. Very, very interesting.
India supported both East and West Germany during the Cold War, and after reunification, they were like, woohoo, even better! And Germany is to South Korea what Japan is to France. They love to piggyback off of each other's ideas and cultures, especially in the automotive industry. Many South Koreans were sent to Germany after the Korean War to work abroad and study, and Germans have been growing in fascination with visiting South Korea. The US is probably the closest ally outside of the EU. About 30% of Americans claim German heritage, and after World War II, the Marshall Plan allowed the US to give post-war aid to Germany, which helped kickstart the economic recovery. Germany was a key figure in the formation of the State of Israel after World War II, which after the Holocaust left an obligation to invest in the building up of a Jewish community. Turkey is probably the closest Middle Eastern ally.
See, I don't know any of this, like what they just said about building up the Jewish community apart in Israel.
As the Turks make up the largest Asian demographic in Germany, although many of them may or may not also identify as Kurds. But since Kurds don't have a state of their own, they usually go under Turkish passports when immigrating and are documented as such. Their best friends, however, would probably be literally all their neighbors. The thing is, Germany is kind of like Bosnia and Herzegovina, in which, by default, they kind of get friends based off of the regional alliances. Bavarians get along with Austrians, Baden-Württemberg's get along with Switzerland.
Yeah, wherever you are in the... Right on.
East Germany has good relations with the Slavic countries. The Rhine states love Belgium, Luxembourg, and France, and the North side loves the Netherlands and Denmark. France, though, is kind of like the trophy wife of Germany, as the two have had an angry start, but then eventually fell in love and worked together beautifully. France is like the beautiful, flashy spokesperson for the EU that stands in the spotlight as Germany stands in the background, managing all the money and logistical work. In conclusion, although Germanic peoples have existed for thousands of years, an actual unified German state didn't appear until kind of recently, and the brief time that they've been around, they've kind of gone through some of the most intense, world-revolutionizing historical events possibly imagined. Yet, they've come out
See, I'd like to go to France, and I'd like to go to Germany, for sure.
working hard and building their way up to become a world superpower. You gotta give it to them. There's something about the Germans. And with that, final boss level complete. Stay tuned, another African state German.
So shout out to this guy for doing all these videos in geography now. I appreciate all you guys for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, click subscribe right now. My name's 𝐂𝐎𝐍𝐓𝐀𝐂𝐓, and I'm coming to you live and direct from my bathroom, man. I appreciate it.
Man, can you stop it, all this work is flawless. My best month's usually August. The blueprint's laid, appalling.